A farmer's goat fell through a hole in 1978 and uncovered a tunnel system spanning 300 miles. 3 centuries of Greek civilization, wars, politics, empires, and nobody knew these passages existed beneath their feet. But the real question isn't who built them. It's what was being transported through them at night. Greece sits on top of a secret. Not some metaphorical secret, an actual, physical one. Miles and miles of tunnels carved directly into the earth, hidden for thousands of years beneath temples, palaces, and ordinary city streets. And here's the thing. The ancient Greeks weren't supposed to be tunnel people. That was Egypt's territory, Mesopotamia's specialty. But the Greeks looked at their rocky limestone terrain and thought, you know what? We can work with this. Turns out limestone is basically nature's gift to anyone who wants to dig. It's soft enough to carve with simple tools, but sturdy enough not to collapse on your head. Usually. By around 3000 BCE, early Greek civilizations figured this out, but the real tunnel madness started with the Mycenaeans around 1400 BCE. These guys built underground passages beneath their fortresses that you can still walk through today. 1400 years before Christ, and their construction holds up better than some apartment buildings I've seen. The word kryptos comes from ancient Greek. It means hidden. That's where we get crypt. And these tunnels, they were designed to be invisible. If you didn't know where to look, you'd never find them, which is exactly why so many survived. Think about it. Surface buildings got burned, looted, demolished by invading armies, but tunnels can't destroy what you can't find. Enemies would level entire cities and walk right over escape routes, water systems, and treasure vaults without ever knowing they existed. There's another advantage nobody talks about. Underground temperatures stay between 55 and 60 degrees year-round. Perfect for storing food, perfect for hiding people, perfect for staying alive when everything above ground was trying to kill you. But how exactly did they dig these things without modern equipment? But here's where things get interesting. How do you dig through solid rock without dynamite? The Greeks figured it out. Iron-tipped pickaxes did the heavy lifting, sure. But the real trick? Wooden wedges. Workers would drill holes into rock, jam in dry wooden wedges, then soak them with water. As the wood expanded, it cracked stone apart like nature's own jackhammer. Slow? Absolutely. Effective? Remarkably so. And the precision these guys achieved is honestly embarrassing for anyone who's ever hung a crooked picture frame. Myself included. Take the tunnel of Eupalinos on the island of Samos, built around 530 BCE. Teams started digging from opposite ends of a mountain. They met in the middle with less than 2 feet of error. No GPS, no lasers, just math, determination, and a 20-foot wooden level called a chorobates with hanging plumb lines. How did workers on opposite sides even coordinate? Acoustic signals. They'd hammer specific patterns on the rock, and the sound would echo through. Essentially ancient Morse code, except about 2,000 years earlier. Now here's something nobody talks about enough. The air situation underground was genuinely terrifying. Oil lamps with clay reservoirs provided light, but they also ate up oxygen. Workers rotated in short shifts because passing out in a cramped tunnel wasn't just inconvenient. It was deadly. Ventilation shafts solved this problem, but they couldn't just punch obvious holes everywhere. That would defeat the whole secret tunnel purpose. So engineers disguised air shafts as wells or natural rock formations. Fresh air flowed in while the tunnel's existence stayed hidden. Pretty clever for people without engineering degrees, right? But all this technical brilliance served something even more critical than impressive construction. These tunnels kept entire cities alive during sieges. Here's where things get really clever. Athens had a massive problem. The city needed fresh water. Mountains had plenty of it, but those mountains sat 11 miles away. And enemies? They'd love nothing more than to cut off your water supply during a siege. So the Greeks did something brilliant. They buried their water highways underground. The Pisistrated aqueduct, built around 530 BCE, ran beneath Athens like a secret lifeline. And here's the kicker. Portions of it still exist today, right under modern streets near the Acropolis. We're talking 2,500 years of continuous function. My car barely lasts 10. But why go through all that trouble? Simple. You can't poison what you can't find. You can't dam what you can't see. Invading armies would surround Athens, smugly assuming they'd cut off all water access. Meanwhile, fresh mountain water kept flowing through tunnels they never knew existed. The engineering was absurdly precise. Workers lined tunnel floors with waterproof clay. They angled everything at exact gradients, a drop of just 1 inch per 100 feet. That tiny slope kept water moving without pumps, without machinery, without anything but gravity and Greek stubbornness. Then there were the underground cisterns, hidden caves converted into emergency reserves that could store months of drinking water. Corinth mastered this system so completely that attackers would besiege the city. Certain victory was days away. Weeks later, they'd still be waiting while Corinthians bathed comfortably underground. Multiple sieges failed against Corinth. Multiple armies gave up, all because of tunnels they couldn't locate. Now, secret water supplies kept cities alive, but what about the people running those cities? Kings and generals needed their own insurance policies, and those escape routes, they make spy movies look boring. Now here's where things get personal, literally. Greek rulers weren't just worried about foreign armies. They were paranoid about their own people. And honestly, they had good reason to be. The tyrant Polycrates of Samos built a private escape tunnel that could evacuate his entire household in under 20 minutes. His palace looked normal from the outside, but beneath his bedroom floor, a passage leading straight through the city walls to a hidden cove where boats waited. My grandfather used to say, "A man with one exit is a man who trusts too much." Polycrates clearly agreed. These weren't simple holes in the ground either. Royal escape tunnels contained hidden rooms stocked with gold, weapons, and enough preserved food to survive for months. Basically ancient panic rooms, except you could actually run through them. But how do you hide a tunnel entrance in a palace crawling with servants and guards? Cleverly. That's how. Some entrances hid behind movable altars, others sat beneath bathing pools. One particularly paranoid king disguised his escape route inside a fake wine storage room. Only immediate family knew the location. Servants who accidentally discovered these passages, well, let's just say they didn't get promoted. The real proof these tunnels worked came in 385 BCE. The city of Mantinea fell to enemy forces. Total defeat. Enemies poured through the gates celebrating their victory. Meanwhile, the city's leaders were already a mile away, crawling through darkness towards safety. And here's the dark twist nobody talks about. Some escape tunnels included booby traps, false floors over deep pits, narrow passages rigged to collapse from the inside. Because if enemies found your secret exit, you wanted it to become their grave. But rulers weren't the only ones who needed tunnels for survival. Entire armies depended on them. Now here's where tunnels stopped being useful and started being deadly weapons. Greek armies figured out something brutal. Why bash against walls for months when you could dig right under them? Sappers would tunnel beneath enemy fortifications, prop up the ceiling with wooden beams, then set everything on fire. The supports burned, the tunnel collapsed, and the wall above came crashing down. Sounds foolproof, right? Well, the defenders at Plataea in 429 BCE had other ideas. They placed bronze shields flat on the ground and listened. The metal picked up vibrations from digging like an ancient stethoscope. Once they located the enemy tunnel, they dug their own shaft to intercept it. Then things got creative, and by creative, I mean horrifying. Defenders would flood enemy tunnels with water or pump smoke inside. Some accounts mention releasing actual bees into tunnel openings. I'd have quit on the spot. The Spartans took underground warfare seriously. They trained specialized units just for tunnel combat, armed with short swords because regular weapons were useless in tight spaces. These soldiers practiced fighting in complete darkness. No torches, no visibility, just sound and instinct. And when opposing tunnel teams accidentally broke through into each other, pure chaos. Hand-to-hand combat in pitch-black passages barely wide enough to swing your arm. Nobody wanted that assignment. Alexander the Great paid attention to all this. At Tyre and Gaza, his engineers used Greek tunneling techniques to undermine walls that seemed impossible to breach from above. Surface attacks had failed repeatedly. Underground attacks won the siege. The lesson was clear. Walls only protected you from what you could see coming. But military tunnels were just the violent side of underground Greece. The strangest tunnels served something far more mysterious. Now here's where things get really weird. The oracle at Delphi was ancient Greece's most famous fortune teller. Kings, generals, and ordinary people traveled for weeks just to ask questions about their future. And the priestess who delivered these prophecies? She sat in a chamber built directly over natural rock fissures. Geologists have confirmed that intoxicating vapors actually rose through these cracks, so the oracle was basically getting high on geological fumes while predicting the future. Talk about a contact high. But the priests running these temples weren't leaving anything to chance. They constructed hidden passages behind chamber walls. During rituals, a priest could suddenly appear out of nowhere. Poof! Divine materialization. The worshippers lost their minds thinking a god just showed up for breakfast. Then there's the acoustic tricks. Some temples had tunnels specifically designed to amplify sound. A priest whispering at one end would sound like a booming voice from heaven at the other. Pretty clever for people without microphones, right? The cave sanctuary of Zeus on Mount Ida in Crete goes even deeper, literally. Tunnels extend over 130 feet into solid mountain rock. Young men crawled through these passages for initiation rituals. Coming out the other side meant you were officially a man. Basically, ancient Greece's version of a really intense escape room. My favorite, though? The healing temples called Asclepions. Sick people slept in underground chambers expecting divine dreams that would cure them. What they didn't know was priests were pumping herbal smoke through hidden tunnel vents. The patients woke up feeling better and credited the gods. The priests just smiled and kept quiet. And when enemy armies attacked, secret passages let priests evacuate entire temple treasuries while worshippers above unknowingly served as distractions. Speaking of distractions, the military got creative with tunnels too. Greek city-states didn't just dig tunnels for water and escape routes, they built entire underground postal services. When enemy armies surrounded your city, carrier pigeons could be shot down, signal fires could be blocked, horseback messengers captured before they reached the first mile marker, but a runner crawling through a tunnel 20 feet below enemy camps, invisible. These messenger tunnels connected allied cities like an ancient internet. Except instead of fiber optic cables, you had sweaty guys memorizing routes in complete darkness. And I mean complete darkness. Trained runners navigated by touch alone. Rope guides hung along walls. Carved markers at intersections told them which way to turn. Left notch means go left. Double notch means you're halfway there. 3 notches means you took a wrong turn 20 minutes ago. The passages were tight. We're talking barely wide enough for shoulders. Hours of crawling through spaces that would make a claustrophobic person faint just thinking about it. But here's what made these human message systems brilliant. They couldn't be intercepted. During the Peloponnesian War, the Spartans blockaded Athens completely. Ships couldn't enter. Soldiers couldn't leave. The city was sealed, except it wasn't. Underground tunnels connected Athens to its port at Piraeus 4 miles away. Military intelligence flowed freely while Spartan generals wondered how the Athenians kept coordinating with their navy, and messengers had backup plans. Many carried hollow walking sticks containing coded scrolls. If they got caught above ground between tunnel exits, they looked like ordinary travelers, just a guy with a walking stick. Nothing suspicious here. The enemy never knew these networks existed until cities they thought were isolated somehow kept communicating. But moving messages was one thing. Moving massive amounts of silver, that required something else entirely. Let's talk about the thing that actually made Athens powerful. And no, it wasn't philosophy or democracy, it was dirt. Specifically, what was underneath it. The silver mines at Laurium contained over 150 miles of tunnels. That's not a typo. 150 miles of underground passages carved entirely by hand. This single mining operation funded the entire Athenian navy and bankrolled what historians call the golden age of Greek culture. Pretty good return on investment, right? But here's where it gets dark. Roughly 20,000 slaves worked these mines in rotating shifts. The passages they crawled through, just 2 feet high. I've seen bigger spaces under my kitchen sink. The drainage systems alone were engineering marvels. Slaves operated wooden screw pumps that Archimedes invented to remove groundwater constantly flooding the shafts. Without these pumps, the tunnels would have filled in weeks. Now here's the fact that really hits. The wealth pulled from Laurium paid for 200 warships. Those exact ships defeated the Persian fleet at the Battle of Salamis in 480 BCE. Western civilization arguably exists because of silver dug from these tunnels. The human cost, though. Average life expectancy for Laurium miners was just a few years. Lead poisoning, cave-ins, respiratory disease. These tunnels created empires but destroyed the people who built them. And when the silver veins eventually ran dry in certain areas, Greeks didn't abandon those tunnels. They converted them into hidden storage facilities and emergency shelters. Nothing went to waste underground. The wealth was extracted, the tunnels remained, and some found entirely new purposes. Speaking of new purposes, those empty mine shafts weren't the only tunnels getting creative second uses. Greek architects designed some passages specifically to deceive, confuse, and kill anyone who entered uninvited. Greeks didn't just build tunnels to hide, they built tunnels to kill. And they got creative about it. Really creative. Picture an invading soldier finding what looks like a secret passage into a city. His eyes light up. Easy victory, right? He signals his squad. They rush in, torches blazing, swords ready. The tunnel stretches ahead. Promising. Then it starts narrowing. Just slightly at first. Then more. By the time armored men realize they can barely move their elbows, they're already trapped. Defenders waiting at the end pick them off like fish in a barrel. But wait, it gets worse. Some tunnels had murder holes carved into the ceilings. Small openings, invisible in dim torchlight. Perfect for pouring boiling oil on whoever walked underneath, or jabbing spears downward. The attackers below never saw it coming. Syracuse took tunnel warfare to another level entirely. Their engineers designed underground mazes with so many confusing branches that enemy soldiers reportedly wandered for days. Days. Some probably never found their way out at all. Then there's the acoustic trickery. Greeks discovered that certain tunnel shapes could amplify sounds dramatically. 3 defenders stomping their feet could sound like 50 soldiers charging. Invaders would hear this thundering approach and panic. Turn around. Run straight back into whatever traps they'd already passed. My personal favorite? False floors. You're walking through a tunnel, feeling confident. The ground seems solid. Then suddenly you're falling 15 feet onto sharpened wooden stakes. The trapdoor swings back into place above you. Nobody even knows you're down there. These weren't just defensive measures. They were psychological warfare carved into stone. But building death traps was one thing. Actually living in these tunnels during sieges, that's where things got truly desperate. Here's where things get really human. During extended sieges, people didn't just hide underground for an afternoon. They lived down there. Weeks, sometimes months. Entire communities established cooking areas, sleeping quarters, and yes, sanitation systems. Because when you're sharing a tunnel with 200 people, bathroom rules become non-negotiable real fast, and life continued underground in ways you wouldn't expect. Children were actually born in tunnels during the siege of Potidaea in 432 BCE. Babies who spent their first months of life never seeing sunlight. Their first experiences of the world? Darkness, whispers, and the constant fear of discovery. Tunnel communities developed strict rules about everything. When you could talk, when you could move, how much light you could use. One careless moment, one loud conversation, and enemies patrolling above might hear you. Food rationing was serious business too. Elected tunnel wardens distributed supplies to prevent hoarding. You think your neighborhood HOA is strict? Try living under someone who controls whether you eat today. But here's the part nobody talks about. The psychological toll was devastating. Ancient writers describe something called cave madness, paranoia, hallucinations, violent outbursts, weeks in complete darkness, never knowing if today was the day enemies would find the entrance. The human mind wasn't designed for that. And when sieges finally ended, some people refused to leave. Days would pass, and survivors stayed underground, traumatized, unable to face the world above after spending months hiding in darkness. The tunnel that saved their lives had also changed them forever. These weren't just military installations. They were survival chambers where ordinary people faced extraordinary circumstances. But who actually built these underground cities? The workers behind the walls have their own dark story. So, who actually built these tunnels? Here's where it gets dark. Professional tunnel guilds existed across Greece. These weren't casual workers. They were specialists who guarded their techniques like state secrets. Apprentices swore oaths of secrecy. Break that oath? Death. Not exile, not fines. Death. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Many tunnel workers never got the chance to reveal anything. War captives were specifically selected for the most sensitive projects. Why? Because they'd be executed the moment construction finished. Sounds brutal, right? It was. Greeks understood that dead men tell no tales about where escape routes lead or how to breach city defenses. Now, not everyone met that fate. Skilled surveyors who could calculate underground angles were worth their weight in silver. Some earned more than military generals. Makes sense when you think about it. A general loses one battle. The city still stands. A surveyor miscalculates by a few degrees. Your secret water supply runs straight into enemy territory. Then there's the labor disputes. Yes, ancient Greece had strikes. Around 413 BCE, miners at Laurium straight up refused to enter unstable shafts. My grandfather would have loved this story. See, workers have been fighting management since before Jesus, he'd say. The tunnel builders even developed their own religion. They left offerings at tunnel entrances, sacrifices to underground spirits. When you spend your life in darkness with rock overhead that could collapse any moment, you develop a healthy respect for forces you can't control. Foreign engineers, especially Egyptians and Phoenicians, were hired for complex projects, but they weren't trusted. Armed guards watched them constantly. No chance to escape, no chance to sell secrets. These builders created masterpieces that lasted millennia. But what happened to those tunnels after the builders were gone? Here's the thing about ancient tunnels. They don't stay hidden forever. Construction crews in Athens accidentally break into forgotten passages roughly once per year, just digging foundations for apartments or expanding subway lines. Then boom, a 2,000-year-old tunnel nobody knew existed. I find that absolutely wild. You're pouring concrete and suddenly you're staring into a passage that hasn't seen light since before the Roman Empire fell, and we've barely scratched the surface, literally. Experts estimate less than 30% of Greek underground networks have been fully explored. That means somewhere beneath tourist-packed ruins, entire tunnel systems sit waiting in darkness. Makes you wonder, what else is down there? Modern archaeologists don't even need shovels anymore. Ground-penetrating radar reveals hidden passages without disturbing a single stone. They're finding networks beneath sites that have been studied for centuries. Previous generations walked right over them. But here's what really gets me. Some ancient water tunnels still work. After 2,500 years, they're still carrying groundwater exactly as designed. Try getting a modern appliance to last 10 years. These Greeks built infrastructure that outlasted empires. The engineering principles they developed underground didn't die with them either. Roman aqueducts borrowed their techniques. Medieval castle builders copied their escape routes. Even modern subway construction uses methods Greeks pioneered. Then there's the discovery that changed everything. In 1992, workers expanding the Athens metro broke through a wall and found a complete underground sanctuary. Sealed, forgotten, untouched for over 2,000 years. The ancient Greeks built a hidden world beneath their feet. Most of it we're still finding. Some secrets, it turns out, just need a little more time.